talk about winging. We're going to break this into two parts. Part one we'll have now, part two maybe not. Part one is wing handling, learning how to use a wing, learning how to basically windsurf with the wing. Part two is the foil part, learning how to ride a foil board with the wing. Okay? And so we'll talk about that at another time. If you want to be a foiler when you grow up, Reese, you have 2 days of windsurf experience.
Right.
Let's pretend you didn't have any. You don't have any.
Yeah.
And you want to get on a foil. If I have to kite surf, I have to learn to kite surf, which is hard. And then, not hard, but take me a while. And then I have to learn to kite surf foil on this little tiny thing, which is brutal. So that's a month in. I'm going to be a windsurf foiler. I got to learn to windsurf. Okay, maybe 4 or 5 days. I don't have to water start. I don't have to use a harness, but I still have to be an okay windsurfer before I can windsurf foil. Winging, I don't need any of these things. I've never done any sport before, and in 2 days I can foil with a new sport. So you can get there very quickly compared to these other ways to it. So this is why this is a popular sport to get to. Second, it's very easy to blow up and put together, and you get a lot of range out of your equipment. So you can go with very small gear, but hold it in a lot of wind, and you could just canopy it over your head and be overpowered and not be like having to wrestle with it. Okay? Now, you guys, this is my best analogy for foiling, and this is the selling point. All right, so you guys, if I'm a surfer, I'm a windsurfer, I'm a kite surfer. I ride a paddleboard. I'm a sailor. This is like riding a bicycle with low air pressure in your tires. This means that you pedal uphill on your bicycle, but if you have low air pressure, you have to pedal downhill unless the hill is really steep, and then it goes by itself. If you have low air pressure in your tires, you have to pedal through every single turn on your bicycle. That's what windsurfing is like. That's what surfing is like. That's what kite surfing is like. That's what paddleboarding is like. That's what riding a sailboat is like. You have to keep the motor running every time you turn around. And you have to pedal uphill, and you have to pedal downhill unless the wave is steep enough, and then finally it goes on its own. But foiling is like riding a bike with full air pressure in the tires. You still have to pedal uphill. You still have to pedal upwind. You still have to pedal up a wave. With the smallest downhill, and it rolls. And it rolls. And when you put it into a turn, you can coast and roll. You guys have never done a water sport that allows you to coast. That's what foiling does. If you live in Canada, or you live in the middle of the US, where it's not that windy, and it's up and down, being able to coast is the difference between zipping around all day and zipping around half the day. When you go and then stop and go and stop. As soon as you have air in the tires, now you're able to roll right through. So the reason we want to learn to foil someday is so we can use smaller gear, and so we can coast on the water, which is a whole new idea. Conceptually, a whole new idea. Yes,
so
Roland.
pedaling is using the power of the sail.
That's correct.
Or the power of a wave.
That's correct.
If you're a surfing.
Right, or the paddle. You're having to drive the whole time, and the second you stop, it stops.
Right.
Unless it's steep enough. But a foil, once you're going, it keeps rolling. Right? Your favorite term. So it's rolling. All right, how we doing? Okay, so number one, let's talk about winging. Number one, I would love to hate winging.
You love it.
I would love to hate winging. You know why I love to hate winging? What do I do for a living? I teach windsurfing. Like, this is the stupidest sport ever. It's terrible. I hate winging because it's not windsurfing, and I love windsurfing. And I would love to hate it, but I don't. Of course I don't. But there are a couple things that are a real pain in the ass, so let's be serious. The first thing that we hate about winging is there are 2 leashes. One goes from the wing to you, either on your waist or on your wrist, and the other one goes from the board to you. 2 leashes. You know how easy it is here to get tied up in 2 leashes? So the first thing I have to do when I learn this is figure out how to untangle myself and get out from around the foil, which is under the board, and have the thing tied up, and get myself untangled on the water. And I have to do that without untying it, because somehow I got tangled up, which means somehow I can untangle myself without untying myself, because I don't want to tie and release this when I get tangled up, because it will leave me. So the first thing that we hate about winging and foiling is there are 2 leashes. Now it makes sense because I really don't want this to blow away, but why would I need a leash to the board? Because it has air in the tires, right? When you're a windsurfer and you fall off, it goes boom and stops. When you're on a foil and you fall off and you kick it, because you know Haley's going to be like, oh, hero save, you kick it. It's going to go for 2 miles without her on it, and then it's going to stop. So you got to have that leash so it doesn't float away from you, because it will. So the first problem is 2 leashes. The second problem with winging is anytime you take your eyes off of the wing, it flips upside down. So we're going to talk about that more in a minute. There are currently 3 types of wings on the market. So you want to learn about winging, 3 types of wings on the market. The first one has a center bladder and handles. A center bladder that goes down the middle and handles. Small, soft handles or handles that look like staple. Type number 2 has a center bladder and a boom that connects to the center bladder to do a tone strike. The third one has a boom and no center bladder like this. This is slowly becoming obsolete. The reason is this one can dig in or go turtle, where if it has a center bladder, it floats from the middle even if it's right side up or upside down. But it's not to say that this doesn't work. This works fine. But the one that has the bladder and the boom is my favorite because the boom fits the same size for all wings. Whether it's a big one or a small one, just Velcro it in the middle. It's not really adjusting the wing. It's just kind of taped to it. And so it's just exactly where you want it all day. They're really nice. But so it will go vertical into the water. So like if you're holding it, it will go straight under you.
Oh, you mean
yes, the blue edge, the trailing edge will go straight down.
So they don't need the leading edges up there.
That's right. So what'll happen is if the wind's blowing right, it'll go straight under. And then you have to pull it up like you're pulling toast out of a toaster. It's got to be like that right angle to get it clear because it goes straight down and in.
Yeah. Around here with the current, that's not good.
Exactly. Exactly. So, wings range from 8 meter to like 2 meters. This is a 7, so this is pretty big. And when they get bigger, the bladder gets bigger. Like the 7 and the 8s, it's like holding on to, you know, a big garbage can or oil drum, you know, and then the 3.5s and the smaller, it's pretty cool. So the bladder sizes are a little different to the size of the wing. If you look, there are usually small release valves or emergency release valves on here, like it looks like what you blow up a beach balloon with, and then the big main valve. And every wing has a PSI rating. The larger the wing, the less pressure it takes. The larger the wing. Do you have an air pump with you? Yes. Can you pull it out, please? So the larger the wing, the less pressure it takes, which I don't understand, but people that know all about tires, I guess it's the same way. Like if you have a really skinny, one of those really fancy tires with the big rims, they take a ton of air pressure, and then the big loony ones don't. So it's sort of the opposite of...
Like with bikes.
Like in bikes. There we go. Okay, the average pump is not red. It's fine. It's a Russian thing, right?
No, this is for walls.
Okay. All right, here we go. So, taking a look at this thing, it has a pressure gauge. Most people swear this doesn't work. You know why that is? Because you pump for 10 minutes and nothing's happened. You're like, Jesus, this thing definitely does not work because it's not registering on the gauge. So you pump for hours before it even touches the gauge, and then the last little bit, it comes up. If you underinflate your wing, it's like overinflating a windsurfing sail. Not overinflating, over-outhauling. It's like somebody pulled your sail board flat. So if your wing feels dead or the tips are flopping too low, it's because it's underinflated. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, that's good enough. Can't do the ticket lesson. You got to look at the gauge because it makes a big difference. You got to have it inflated properly. The valves always lock and unlock when you turn it on. So when I open when I hook this and turn it, it opens the main valve, and then when you pump it, it fills up. When you unturn it, it locks the valve again, shut, and then you disconnect the air hose. So you got to be kind of meticulous in turning it just right and not being short. So you pull it out short, it'll start leaking. And then you double check. This dark blue thing is the valve. I make sure it's extra shut tight, and then you screw this baby on tight too. Now, every pump except Sergey's comes with a leash. There's a leash that goes on the bottom of the pump and goes to the wing. No way, it's fine. Now we know what it looks like. So the reason I'm pointing this out to you guys, look, these wings will leave you every time you are not looking. When you're not looking, I'm like, hey, what did you just say to me? And it's gone. It travels across land and water. If we had the right gust, we'd have to go pick this up over at McDonald's. And I'm not kidding you. So, before I blow this thing up, I have to have a plan. I am not allowed to blow up the wing unless I know what I'm going to do with it. You know those stupid kettle weights? I travel with a bunch of those now. When I teach winging, I throw them all out on the beach, and then all my people hook their wings up to their kettle weights because you've got to figure out what you can do with it. Now you can buy a really sick electric pump, which will do less work for you. You punch a number in, push a button, stand there, hook it to a carabiner. When it's all done, you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. So electric pump, let's be serious. Get electric pump. But if not, we use the old-fashioned way and we pump it up. But before we pump it up, we have to attach it to the pump or attach it to something else. Now, before I pump this up, I have my weight or my thing or whatever. I have to attach this to something. Do not leave this on the ground unattended. Okay? So it's attached to something, I can go do something else. If I'm actually going to go wing foiling, I'm going to put my wing foil together. I'm going to get my wetsuit on. I'm going to get everything ready, and then I'm going to go pump it up and go out. How are we doing? Okay, questions on inflating a wing, pumping it up, wing sizes, ideas, booms. You guys windsurf, there's a balance point on your boom where your power spot is on your windsurfing sail, and you guys learn, put your harness lines there, and you find this magic point, this balance point. The wing is the same way. There's a spot on this boom that if I grabbed it with one hand, it'd be just crazy amount of power. But most of the wings have handles, so that crazy power spot isn't even available to grab. Like you can't grab it in the middle. You can grab one end or the other. So the reason I love the boom is you can go right to that sweet spot. You have all this little micro adjustment to find that extra little power, extra little tweak, where if you have handles, it's a little bit more hard. Plus, if you're holding a bar, you all know exactly where your other hand is. Like you know where the other end of the bar is. You instinctively know what a bar is. Where there's handles and you have to reach for a handle, there's always that, maybe it's not quite in line because it's soft. Where that holding that boom is just so much more precise with your handwork when you're learning to do stuff. Okay, so the first thing I want to teach you guys is how to flip the wing over. Before we learn to go anywhere, sail anywhere, I need to teach you guys how to flip the wing over. There are two techniques we're going to learn. One is from the center, and one is called shoveling. The one that we learn to do from the center, we do when we are on the board. So if you're hanging out on your board, all right, standing or kneeling. So let's pretend I'm on a board. You guys cannot see it, but I am standing on a board. And my stupid wing is flipped over. Like I told you, we hate them because when you look away, it does this. So, whichever way I'm going to swing the wing, whichever direction, I'm putting my hand under gripped. So I go under grip. I swing the tip towards the wind. I move my backhand away and push down. My front hand is under gripped. I swing the tip towards the wave. I move my backhand away and push down. Under grip, swing the backhand away. My backhand pushes what direction?
Down.
Down. It does not push up. I can flip it over by pushing up, but look how much work I'm doing. I want the wind to help me. If I push it down, the wind gets under it, it helps me flip. Understand?
Slow motion.
Okay, now I also said you have to do that from your knees. So you might be crawling onto the board, and you're on your board on your knees, and your stupid wing is upside down because it always does that. So I got to flip it over. This is a 7 meter. Like I need arms, bigger arms, longer arms than this. So I really have to get the core up high as I swing it so the tips don't touch. I'm on my knees. My leading edge hand is under grip. I swing the arm up as I move it, which gets wind underneath it and raises up that center. The back hand's away and pushes down. No way. Front hand under, swing the tip towards the wind, back hand gets away, and we push down. And it flips over. 7-0 is never going to flip that. The first time you get out on a little 3-5 or a 4-0, you're like, whoa! And it just flies all over the place, you got to slow down. That's flip number 1. Where do I do that? On the board, or kneeling on the board, or standing on the board. The second one we're going to call the shovel flip. And we're going to do this when we are in the water or swimming. Right, Bob got carried away and they had a sail on 40-liter wingboards, and Bob could not pass up a 40-liter wingboard because it was really cool and it would fit in the back seat of the pickup truck. And he's like, oh man, 40-liter wingboard. The problem is, that means Bob has to crawl on a 40-liter wingboard to get started, which is going to be a nightmare. So if you're on a really small board, you got to flip the wing over and get it ready before you even get near that board. Because ain't no sitting on that board and flipping it over because the board isn't going to hold Bob. But it was a good deal. So, shovel flipping. I'm standing in the water, or I'm in swimming and I want to flip it. I'm going to pretend I am shoveling. So if I was shoveling towards Ailey, my front hand would be other, my back hand would be over, and I would push down on the back and flip the shovel over. Flip it up. and shoveling. Front hand under, back hand over, front hand lifts, back hand pushes down. We shovel it, flip the snow right over our head. Shovel, all the way on the end. So 2 techniques. There's a lot more ways to do this. I want you to do those. You get to use these 2. Either flipping it from the middle, the back hand pushing down, right? Or going to the end, full shovel, foot under, hand under, lift, and flipping. Okay, so now let's talk about actually getting on the board. I want you guys to imagine for a moment I am standing on my windsurfing board. Since you guys are all windsurfers, I'm going to use the windsurf technique, which does not translate well online, but nonetheless. I'm standing on my windsurfing board, and I'm holding my mast. And I'm standing right where the dag board is, you guys, right? And I'm holding my mast. If I take the sail and I swing it towards the front of the board, and my front of the board is pointed to Ryan, if I take the sail and swing it towards the front of the board, what does the nose of the board do? Where does it turn? Downwind, right? If I take the sail and swing it to the back of the board, the nose of the board turns upwind. Guess what? Leaning steers exactly the same. You guys already all know how to steer. And you can steer this even though you've never even seen one before in your life because it's the same as windsurfing. I can take the wing when I'm standing on my board. If I lean the wing towards the back of the board's going to turn upwind. If I lean the wing towards the front of the board's going to go downwind. But you know what's weird is I'm the mast. So if I held the sail and I walked forward on the board, which way do you think the board would turn? Downwind. If I stood on the board and walked back on the board would turn upwind. So what's really crazy is I've become a part of the steering function. I'm the mast, and wherever I move, it turns if I'm not foiling. The thing is, this also makes it very important when I crawl on the board. Because if I crawl on the board and I'm too far on the front of the board and I crawl on the front and I'm messing around on the front trying to get ready to do everything on the front, guess which way the board's turning the whole time I'm hanging out on the front? Downwind. And I get on the back of the board, I'm like, okay, let's see, I want to do another part right up. And before you know it, I turn straight upwind. You guys have one goal for me as wingers. One goal for me today. Today you go winging. Your goal is to stay upwind. Repeat after me. My goal is to stay upwind. I don't care if you foil. I don't care how fast you go. None of that stuff. You got one goal for me is to stay upwind. Once you can stay upwind, we're going to learn to add power. We're going to learn to foil. We're going to control everything, but it's all going to be done going upwind. That'll keep us safe, sane, and control. And upwind is a pedaling sport. I already know how to pedal. I windsurf. I don't know how to glide. I've never foiled before, so I want to take that strong suit and use that pedaling force to get me to drive myself upwind and get it going. There's my board. That's the front. And this piece right here is a dagger board. If I had a board with a dagger board. Right now, I'm really just learning how to sail, not foil. If I have a board with a foil, then the thickest part of the front wing is this spot. Okay, now the dagger board is really easy to figure out when you're standing on the board, because why? Why is it really easy to figure out where the dagger board is? Because right there, you're tripping over the damn thing. It's already in your way. It's right there on top of the board. You know exactly where it is. You hate it. But the foil, you cannot see where the foil is. It's hidden under the board. So this spot becomes a little bit more, maybe I'm in the right place, maybe I'm not. But if I crawl on the board and I'm in this front corner and I'm getting everything ready on the front corner, the board's going to turn where? Downwind. And if I go in behind this spot, it's going to turn upwind. And with the dagger board, I can see it, but without the dagger board, I got to figure it out a little bit the hard way. But I got one goal. What is it? Stay upwind. So I would rather be error to which side? Far back. Very good. Okay, so roll is 12 o'clock. He's the wind. I just crawled onto my board somehow without getting myself tied up in 2 leashes. Board, and I'm right in the export spot. And I go ahead and I bring the wing over to me. So I'm facing downwind. We got wind, we got me, we got board, we got wind. That's how we started out. If the wing is upside down, I'm going to flip it over. Do you think I should flip the wing over the back of the board every time? Or do you think I should flip the wing over the front of the board every time? Back. Got the back. Why? Because I want to turn upwind. That's right. So even though it might be the long way around, if my wing is not the right way, flip it to the back. Because you'll flip it to the front, and all of a sudden you know it's before it's 6 o'clock, and you're sitting there screwing around, and your board got to the bridge before you knew what happened. You guys, this is downwind express, like you have no idea. We're not allowed to do that. We have one goal, to stay upwind. So, Now, this next part is a little bit multiple choice. So I flip the wing over, and I'm ready to go. If you are on a really big board, or pretty stable, you can go ahead and now turn your body forward before you pull the wing out of the water. If you're on a small board, you can remain with your feet across. If my feet are across, I can displace some of my volume into the water. That's a small board, and he cannot hold this thing up. If I have a big board, I can turn forward. I can turn forward before I get up. And if I'm really old and terrible time standing up, I'm going to go ahead and put my front foot up before I pull the wing out of the water. And my front foot is located where in relationship to my X? Right? I'm in front of the fulcrum, or the dagger board, the fulcrum, the wing, and I am slightly to the windward side of the center line. I saw him pull the wing out, but I'm ready. Front hand goes on the bladder. I yank the wing out of the water and put the backhand onto the boom. Right now, I want you to look at this boom as an arrow. Pointy end. Backhand is the feathers. When I pull down on the backhand, which way does my arrow point? Up. And guess what it's trying to do? It lift me up. If I push up on the backhand, arrow points where? Down. Oh God. Or I can take the arrow and I can point it forward or backward. Alright, I want all of you to stand up for a moment, please. Real Slim Shady, please stand up. I want you to line your feet up parallel to the wind flow. So we're all lining our feet up parallel to the way the wind is going. Parallel to the wind flow. Play along here. Okay, now hands in the air. Now your arrow is pointed at the wind. Everybody's arrow is pointed at 12 o'clock. So I want your arms to go up and down. Arrow up, arrow down, arrow up, arrow down. Now, arrow forward and arrow backward. So wherever you push this arrow, it's going to pull you. So if you're holding it overhead and you pull down on your backhand, guess what? It wants to lift you up off the ground. But if I rotate it forward, it starts pulling me forward or backward. You have to move your arms independently 360 degrees. If you move your arms together, you get to skip the gym. That's it. You've got to move your arms 360 degrees either way. This is how we're going to control the arrow. Now take your feet, you guys, and turn them perpendicular to the wind. So now your back is facing the wind. Ready with me? Now take the arrow and point it back to the wind again. Then we got up and down. Then we got forward, and we got backward. Up, down, and forward and backward. The arms are not related to what? The feet. What are the arms related to? The wing. And the wing is related to what? The wind, not the board. So depending on where that board is going, I still have to relate that wing to the wind only. Are you with me? Understand? Okay, sit back down. Oh, you like this? He's got that look. I crawl up onto the board, X marks the spot. I get that front leg up because I'm old. Put the front hand on the handle, pull the wing up over the head, grab the back hand onto the boom. I'm going to pull the wing back, but rotate the arrow forward. Wait a minute. I'm going to pull the wing back, but rotate the arrow a little bit forward. Pulling the wing back makes the board turn where? Upwind. Pulling the arrow forward makes the board go forward a little bit. So just as a little experiment, I'm feathering the back arm. I rotate the wing slightly forward so it starts pointing towards Kira, but then I move it back so it turns me upwind. Okay, so I'm turning upwind. Now the board is turning towards Andre. I'm turning towards Andre. I'm ready to start rising. I'm going to go ahead and step up with the front foot in front of the balance point. I'm sorry, in front of the fulcrum of the seesaw or the dagger board and to the windward side. Follow up with the back foot, and I want wing back, body forward, wing back, body forward, trying to turn the board upwind. Now, I'm not allowed to grab far back on the boom. I'm not allowed to power up. I'm not allowed to use this whole power because I don't want to foil yet. There's two schools of thought here. I can put you on a big beginner board and have you power up all day and wrestle with the power and struggle with the dagger board and fight and stay upwind, whatever. And when you get really good at that, I can have you try a foil board. Or I can start you on the foil board from day one and explain, as long as you don't fast enough, it's not going to foil. You get used to being on the board, you get used to balancing, you get used to steering, you get used to slogging on your foil board. We'll grow into the speed if we can go upwind. So this is the way I want you guys to do these. I don't want you to go fast right now. I want you to get on the board. We're going to turn it upwind. So we go wing back, body forward. The board turns upwind a little bit. here's the secret. I'm going along. I want to move my hands back onto the boom or back to the handles. Watch carefully. Right now my weight is on which foot? What's it look like? Front foot, right. Weight on the front foot, head forward, wing back, and outside. Check out. Watch this hand movement. Hand back, back, and back. No feather. What is moving to get my hands back on the boom? What is moving? My hand. Nothing else. This is what everybody does. Like, okay, it's time to reach back on this thing. Oh yeah, baby, look at this. This is awesome. And everybody reaches back and they grab way back what direction is pulling. Right downwind immediately. If I can learn to hold the angle that I want, if I can get the angle that I want you to have, and then slowly work my way back and add into that power without re-steering it, I'm going to be golden. I'm going to be upwind all day long. But every time I move my hands back and I grab a full wing of power and it yanks me downwind, I'm gone. Go back to the bladder, go back to the front and start over and steer yourself. Go back to being a beginner windsurfer. Steer the board back to where you want and then grow into your power. Don't load it up right away. So, wing back, body forward, the board is turned, going upwind. I move both hands back. Now this is what I have you do on the beach, is you guys run upwind. You're going to skip upwind, and you're going to feather your back arm. This is what it looks like. I'm going to skip upwind, and feather my back arm. Now this looks funny, but if I yank in hard on the back arm and do not lean myself into it, it's going to pull me downwind. But if I lean my body into it, kind of like swimming up current, and you learn to fly the wing and lean your body into it, that's exactly what it feels like to go upwind. Wing back, weight on the front foot. I'm a windsurfer. I like weight back, weight on the back foot. Like, I don't want to go weight back, weight on the front foot. You guys can all slog that way. I learned to plane that way. It's kind of a weird combination of light wind freestyle meets planing. You always have to stand really still on foil and do all the like light wind freestyle stuff, but you're ripping, which is kind of weird. All right, so we go wing back, body forward, wing back, body forward, board turns upwind. We run upwind, we run upwind, we run upwind, and now guess what? I run out of real estate. I got to turn around. Oh no. Turn around. First thing you guys are going to do, point your arrow to the wind, put your front hand under. Then you're going to reach for the bladder with your back hand. Okay, so I was going upwind. My right hand was forward. I get to the end of the run. Power off, front hand under, back hand bladder. I'm going to push the wing forward. Pushing the wing forward will make the board turn what direction? Downwind, which is called a what? A gybe. So I push the wing forward. Board's turning downwind. It's turning downwind. I'm straight downwind. Starting to turn the other way. I switch my feet. I slowly move my hands back into position. I bring the wing back, body forward, and turn the board where? Back upwind. I sneak my hands back onto the boom without moving the rig. I skip upwind again, wings back, body forward, skipping to the end of my run. I get to the end of the run, front hand under, back hand to the bladder. Push the wing forward, board jibes downwind. I turn downwind, I turn back around. I'm pointing back up to you guys. I move my hands back, and I'm going upwind again. I'm doing figure eights. Going upwind, jibing, going upwind, jibing, going upwind, jibing. Now, what seems kind of unfair about that? What's that? Boring? No. What did you say? It looks like a lot of work. Yeah, running on the beach. If it's windy, it's fun because when you jump, you can just like fly on the beach. No, the thing is I told you I wanted you to stay upwind all day. And why is it fair for me to teach you to jibe first? Right? Why wouldn't you learn how to tack, right? So I can tack, I'd be able to stay upwind all day. So it doesn't really work that way. If tacking on a foil is one thing, but tacking when you're not foiling with just a wing, you'll turn upwind and you'll get stuck like a bad helicopter tack, and the thing is going to drift forever. You're going to lose so much more ground trying to tack than jibing, where the better you get just pushing on the wing and just holding it there, the board spins around very quickly, like a pivot jibe. It turns very quickly. You'll be able to keep your momentum. So doing figure eights and sailing upwind and then bladder jibing, sailing upwind and bladder jibing will give you that confidence. Eventually, we'll learn to move our hands back, we'll learn to power up, and then we'll talk about foiling at another point this weekend for this. That's the idea. The figure eights that you run on the beach, it's super fun when it's windy. Like, it's fun, Kira. You jump off the rock and like send it, just fly. Like, these things are really fun to play with. Jumping off sand dunes and screwing around on the beach. But it's also about learning how to lean into the right posture and then controlling the arrow. What direction do I never want the arrow to point? Down. So you're thinking about that ahead of time? That was quick. Fastest response of the 27 years that I know you, that was your fastest response ever. Okay, so let me ask you something. With my arrow pointed up, or my arrow pointed forward, which way is it easier to make the arrow point down? Forward. Look how close it is already. So what you got to be careful with is I really want to get haul ass towards Ailey. If I start trying to really point the foil to Ailey, all of a sudden I'm pointing it down, and it's going to go down. How do I fix this? Where do I have to point the arrow to reset it? Up, straight into the wind. So this is a hard fix. You have to push down really hard on your back end and yank your front arm and spin this thing into the wind. Otherwise, it's going to take, you're just going to screw over the front. So resetting this arrow and really learning it. If I'm teaching on the water, you hear me say arrow forward, arrow up, arrow forward, arrow up, wing back, head forward. Right? The different dynamics of the angles of the turns of this thing. If I'm going really fast and I'm screaming on the foil, I can have the arrow fully forward. Maybe not on a 7-0, but I could have it like this if I was screaming upwind, big foiling, apparent wind, amazing. But the rest of the time, it's not going to be in that quadrant. It's going to be a lot more upwind. When you finally learn to foil, you're going to get two postures. You're going to get a pedal posture, and you're going to get a coast posture. And those two postures, everything stems between those 2 points, which we'll grow into later. So right now, what we got on the beach is figure 8. I'm sorry, what we got to do on the beach is practice our flipping, which is flipping from the center and flipping from the ends. And then you can stand up on the beach with the wing and practice arrow up, arrow down, arrow forward, arrow back. And then technically we would run figure 8s if we had wind and air in practice. Question so far, how are we doing?
Can we see the handwork on the bladder gybe again?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go in, rolling. I'm gonna go power off, front hand under, back end of the bladder. Push the wing forward, just lean forward or right and look left. Let the board come around, switch your feet halfway through. And then as you come into the new direction, your new front hand will slide in position and you work yourself out
okay.
to the new side.
So the front hand stays on the whole time
on the boom or the
until you get around.
Yeah. And it's funny, when your back hand reaches away to the outside, it makes it really stable. So if both hands are in the middle, it's horrible. But if you go under and then reach to the outside, all of a sudden this distance makes a really nice stability for turning.
Wait, so which hand goes on the bladder?
Back one. Front hand at the end of the run, front hand goes under, back hand goes straight out to the bladder. Under grip. Yeah. Under grip, yes. And so when it's not windy, it's easy to turn your hand under. But when it's windy, so you gotta think about this. Let's say, Kira's powered up, she's pulling on it. She decides she wants to turn her hand under. If she keeps the power on and lets go with this front hand, by the time she gets her hand under, this thing is flown away. So I have to turn the power off before I turn my hand under. How do I do that? I point the arrow to Kira. I point the arrow to 12. Now the power's off. Now I can change my grip, and then I can turn the arrow back on again. Look, the reason that this is easy to teach is intuitive. It's a freaking arrow. Point the arrow where you want to go, and it goes there. Okay, here's what I want. I want everybody on their bicycle, sitting on your bike. All right, we're all sitting on our bikes. I want no pressure in your fingertips on the handlebars, so you're really balanced on your bike seat. Now I want you to go ahead, and we're going to make a left turn on the bike, but we're not really going to turn the handlebars. We're just going to lean over and bank that left turn on the bike. And now I want you to put yourself back up again. Stop banking. Okay, now think about what that feeling. That's what leaning is, right? When you lean over. So whenever you do a foiling turn, when you're finally on the air and this thing's flying, you have to lean your body back and forth to turn. So what I want you to imagine doing is take this left turn on the bike and then look way out to your right for something. But keep trying to make that left turn. So what's weird about a boom is if I'm banking a turn on this thing and I'm flying through a foiling turn, I can look the whole way and I know exactly where my hands are going to be on this bar. I know exactly where they're going to be. But when I have the one with the handles, if I'm doing a bank turn with the one with the handles, and I'm coming around, I end up doing this. Right when I'm coming out of the turn, I should be flying towards roll, and I'm like, I got to take that little glance to see where that little handle is, because it's not intuitively in line with it. It should be. But that little glance, when I'm trying to make that beautiful left turn, and I take it, I'm like, I want that little, I just got to take that little look to see where that hand's going to go. It's precision. But on the foil, you have to be that still. So I can't afford to be looking around on the foil because it's going to fly somewhere. So I like the boom because whenever I reach or move, I know or I trust where it is. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to get that good with the handle. But let's say I have 3 different wings. And one's a boom, and one has soft handles, and one has staples. Now I got to think a little bit each time. I'm not saying you can't do it, but if I want to spend money to make life easier, then be consistent. And then, like, the boom is nice. Like, it's really great. It pops right in, and it's right there. It may take 2 seconds longer to rig, but I really like it. And it comes in carbon. You get a carbon one.
pass it.